You are at war with yourself and likely don't realize it. Your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and actions often sabotage you. Are they helping you overcome adversity or setting you up for failure? To win this battle, you must connect with your inner warrior. We all have a warrior within us, one that strengthens our resolve and helps us to rise to meet life's challenges. If you're just surviving rather than thriving, then it's time to embrace the warrior archetype, live the warrior ethos, and ascend. If you are a veteran, first responder, or someone looking to take charge of your life, find your tribe, and then be the hero of your own story, this podcast is for you. Join Mike Kinney and Matt Hastings, two retired U.S. Army officers who served in U.S. Army Special Operations and Army Aviation units, as they share with you optimal performance practices they learned in their time with the Military and Warriors Ascent, a 501c3 nonprofit that helps veterans and warriors with PTS.
Well, all right, everyone. Welcome to the Warriors Ascent podcast with your host, Mike. Matt, my co-host, is not here with us. Today's on business, but I've got Dave Bellis back again. He was featured in a previous episode. We're going to go probably a little bit more into Asset Performance Institute, his company. I'll say his philosophy behind both his organization, right? His company, and then also I would say life, right? Life in general, because really fitness is a vehicle for so many other things. But so let me just again reintroduce Dave, right? Founder, Asset Performance Institute, Navy veteran. So he told us all about what he went through, what he did in the Navy, last episode. So check it out if you want to find out more. And then, of course, Dave is a Warriors Ascent alum. Let's talk philosophy. So, I'll tee things up, right, by quoting Vince Lombardi.
Yes.
Right. And you know what it's going to be, right?
Send it.
Fatigue makes cowards of us all. I think they've also said, Patton said that in some form as well. Right. So fully knowing that, hey, whether it's football in the case of Lombardi, but, as a boxer at West Point, I'll tell you, if you could bring it third round, and feel like I've still got more gas in the tank, unless this guy was way better than you, you'd probably do okay. Whereas the converse of that, if you're like, oh my God, I'm completely exhausted and this guy's fresh as a daisy, he's going to tool me. It's a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
And then for those that follow UFC, way back in the day, I'm dating myself, Frank Shamrock, right?
Okay.
You know the deal. He used to say that conditioning was his secret weapon. That was a weapon for him because he knew he would go in and just run guys down and out-condition them.
That's right.
So I never forgot that, and I'm like, I'm not saying I'm as well-conditioned as Frank Shamrock, but I always tried to come, as prepared as I could, right? So whether it's operational readiness, right, resiliency, or just even more bandwidth, conditioning is super important. So in terms of philosophy, speak to us, Dave.
Yeah. So our philosophy at API, or Asset Performance Institute, is just building resilient, fit, reliable professionals. It's, kind of the tagline of be an asset, not a liability.
That's right.
So you want to be an asset for your family. You want to be an asset for your community. You don't want to be that weight that's bringing everybody down, right? It's a team kind of mentality. So, when we think about what is an asset, an asset is somebody that provides, extreme value, somebody that, can perform under duty, somebody that can, show up every single day and put others before self. That's kind of some of the mindset that we pulled from, when I was in the military, and then also that's translated across all the first responders. These guys and gals are, selfless individuals that show up to protect and serve and help others, and, a lot of times unfortunate situations. So I think our philosophy is really just kind of going in and trying to affect culture, trying to affect the way people look at health and wellness, the way people look at fitness and strength and conditioning, and some of those misconceptions. And especially nowadays when, the internet, there's so much, it's almost kind of like this over flooding tidal wave of information, and every influencer out there has a thought on it. But we really take one of the other things that we really try and push is like backed by science, proven by action. So what does the science say? What does the research and the literature say? How do we get the adaptations that we want to get? How do we affect the culture, and how do we affect the strength conditioning? And, looking at other professionals to bring in, like nutrition, sleep, what does the literature say there? And then we back that by our actions. Me personally, living the process every day. Those we train, getting the data and collecting the data on those individuals. Those people that we've trained in the past, where are they at now? What kind of results did we get from them? And that's kind of where we go from there.
No, that's awesome, man. And again, the whole theory and practice piece where, you've got the exercise physiology. I'm a big fan of, exercise science and just having that, I'll call it a theoretical underpinning, right? Not to bring it back to, words to send, but no, there's theory behind, our approaches, right? Backed by science. Same thing, same tagline, backed by science, evidence-based, backed by science.
Yep.
But to your point as well, it's the anecdotal, right? So you can, just be relegated to the theoretical, and that's great. And we can speak formulas and Krebs cycle and energy system development and all the other stuff, that's out there. But when you actually see it applied in theater, then all of a sudden, you realize, hey, there's something to that.
And we can keep that simple too. Like, I think sometimes it gets overcomplicated, right? Especially in the strength conditioning world, or, the influencer world online now. Everybody's trying to create new, different ways of doing exercises, and because it's flashy and it gets views and it gets clicks, and it's clickbait stuff. But like, you don't have to go over and beyond. It's kind of funny when it brought up a quote. One of my favorite quotes is actually Will Durant, and he was interpreting Aristotle. So it gets attributed to Aristotle a lot,
right. Yeah,
but is, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And I love that quote. That's probably one of my favorite quotes of all times, because it's like, if you just show up every day and you try and be excellent every day, and you put your best foot forward, and you become consistent and repeatable, then you will start to see those adaptations in every aspect of your life, whether that's, sticking to a different, healthier lifestyle of eating, or, really hammering down and perfecting your sleep strategy and your sleep hygiene, or being in the gym, or how you show up for your kid for your kids as a parent, how you do your work, your business, whatever career field you're in, how you take care of yourself, how what are your self-help hygiene look like, right? Like, right. All the Warriors Ascent stuff that you guys do, and do so effectively. So it's big.
No, so those the protocols and processes and all of that stuff. So I can't remember in your class if we talked about Lanny Basham. He wrote a book with winning in mind, and he was an Olympic rifle shooter is the word. And the story goes, he was at the gold medal match and just decompensated. The stress got him, and I think he either got a bronze or didn't medal at all, or something crazy like that. Like, he just fell apart. Yeah. And he's like, I'm never letting that happen again. So he retooled his approach, modified it, and won the gold, and was a success story. Went on to coach athletes and stuff like that. And the one story he tells is just really all about process focus. And it was a golfer of all things. So he's at some golf tournament, right? And it's the last putt or whatever it is, 18th hole. And he's so focused, I'm not even sure if he knew, what was at stake, but he gets up there, he goes through his ritual, goes through the process, all of that, boom. He knocks it in, wins the whole thing, right? His wife comes up, gives him a big hug. His caddy comes up, shakes his hand, and he looks at him and he's like, did I win? And they're like, yes, you won $1 million. But he was just so focused, not on the end state, which is what I think people get focused on. I want to be this, and I want to lose weight, and I want to blah, 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 and I want to be the... But as you pointed out, it's the day-to-day, minute-to-minute process of doing your thing perfectly, like Durant was saying. That is really what brings that vision to fruition. So many people, they really fixate on goals, which are important, no doubt, because that's kind of your North Star.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a corresponding process or system undergirded by discipline, by iron discipline, that helps you again, bring that to fruition day to day and execute. If you don't have that, it's all just aspiration and wishful thinking, man.
Yep. And it's like, can you show up every day and put in the work and trust the process without seeing the results?
That's hard.
It's hard.
That's really hard,
insanely
man.
hard. Yeah.
Because you're like, and that's, I think, worth talking about, because I think so many people, even if it's a tiny little bit, like I'll say linear. And I think, again, it'd be interesting to see the science behind it, whether it's exponential. But, there are a few things that are really quite linear. Like, all right, hey, every day I do this much effort, I get this much outcome, this much effort, this much outcome. Seldom. It's usually nothing. Okay, minuscule. And then all of a sudden it's, whether it's algorithmic, exponential, I forget what the distribution is, but all of a sudden now, boom, things start taking off. The hockey stick, the proverbial hockey stick. Right. And that may be 3, 4, 5 months down the road. And then finally you're like, holy cow, hey, I've lost the weight, or my run time. Well, I know you've got the story about with the Ranger captain. Yeah. That you can tell where, this cat was hurt and he's getting ready to do, not RIP, but, what's their Ranger?
RASP.
The Ranger indoctrination program or whatever it is. Pre-Ranger is what we called it back in the day, that type of thing. And I guess, if he's going to regiment, right? So it's part of their assessment program. But yeah, incredible. You put him through a 4 or 6 week program and brought his times down to. Yeah.
So he came to me. We had showed up at 101st Airborne Division, and I got assigned to the Rock-a-Sons, 3rd Brigade, 3rd BCT, 3rd Brigade Combat Team, and then also subsequently assigned to 2506, that battalion, which. The leadership was there. It was awesome. The individuals I met there were incredible. A lot of buy-in from what we were doing, and it was the Army's H2F program, so it's a holistic health and fitness. So it was like strength coach going in and trying to, show them about fitness and how to redo their, their PT sessions and risk resistance training sessions and so on and so forth. But for that gentleman specifically, I had gotten invited to what they were he had a hurt hamstring and then was in the field during a training exercise and was out there for like 3+ weeks straight. And during that field training exercise, they invited me to come out and meet the guys. So the first time I ever met them, they were like in their little talk, GP medium tent or whatever it was that they were doing their thing. And they just bring me in there and I'm some dude in a polo and freaking in pants and walk in and they're like, who's this guy? So I kind of gave them a little brief on who I was and just what I was doing there. And then they were going out to do ranges. So I got to walk some live fire ranges with them, which was awesome. He approached me in the field and told me, he's like, hey, I'm going to what used to be RIP is now RASP, Ranger Assessment Selection Program. It's about 3 weeks. He was already Ranger Tab. So he'd already been through Ranger Qualified. And was looking to go to regiment to be, at one of the bats and one of the battalions. And when he came out of the field, he ran before he came into the facility and found me because I was like, yeah, man, track me down. We'll connect when you get out of the field. He came into the facility. He's like, yeah, I just ran a 5K, 3 miles. And he was like, I ran it in 33 minutes.
And you're like,
I'm like, whew, dude, yeah, 11 minute mile.
You're gonna have a hard time
11
with that, man.
11-minute mile, and you only covered 3 miles. Well, for RASP, when you show up day 1, week 1, you have to do the RPFT, the Ranger Physical Fitness Test or whatever, and that consists of a 5-mile run to start, and you have to do it in under 40 minutes. So kind of a big swing from where he was at, and then. Push-ups, pull-ups, plank, so on. So over the course, we had about 6 or 7 weeks to train him before he took off for RASP. And by the time he left, when he texted me after he checked in week 1, day 1, took the RPFT, and then texted me later that morning when he was done, and he PR'd his run at like 36 minutes, 45 seconds. Jeez. So we took him from an 11-minute mile to a 7:21 mile was that time average in basically 6 weeks, kind of 7. The 7th week was a little whatever, but there were some adjustments in there, and it wasn't all just like a miraculous coaching, strength and conditioning coaching and planning program. And obviously, like, we just passed the knowledge on to him and gave him some tools, and I was texting him damn near on a daily basis. I still keep in contact with him now. And, but yeah, I mean, the guy was a machine, and he got after it, and he put in all the work. He did all the work, and he trained his butt off and got there and made it. He got hired out of RASP, and now he's at one of the Ranger battalions. So I'll just leave it at that.
Jeez, man.
It was pretty good. Like, you know, as a coach and even like as a business owner, that's kind of why we do what we do. Like, I cannot tell you how happy I was. I had gotten up early that morning, and I think we had the day off. We were gone. And that, you know, I was driving in my truck when I got a text message from him, and I was screaming and yelling. I was stoked. I was just in my truck. I was like, yeah, like as if, you know, I mean, cause you invest so much into these guys, like even over, you know, 6 weeks or so, like talking to him every day, and you just want to see those guys win, cause he's such a good dude, and he was busting his ass. Like,
That's the thing, man.
you know, and then
when
to see him win like that, it's just, you're just so happy for him. So yeah.
No, you know, and you're pouring your heart and soul into somebody. You want them to make the most of it.
Yeah.
You know, you want them to, you know, obviously achieve their goals.
Yeah.
And that's got to do your heart good, man.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
we had a couple guys. We had two officers in that RASP class that I trained, and they both made it. We're super happy for both of them. And then, you know, a whole slew of other guys that were off to selection, SFAS, and all that. It's, you know, interesting, but yeah, it's fun. It was a good time. So a lot of really good experience. Glad to see like the results pay off too. Like, for me, that type of stuff is very high stakes, because that's a guy's career, right? Like, and it's like, man, I got to be diligent in what I'm doing, because one, I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to give him a program and then he overextends, overtrains, whatever.
There's someone who said about that. Yeah, no, exactly.
Like, it was like nerve wracking kind of at points where I'm like, all right. And then he would go out and test, and he would see massive improvements of like, okay, cool, we're on the right track. Like, how you feeling every day? Like hyper intensive on their training programs, and man, it worked. So
I might have to get that program.
yeah, let's do it.
I'm running a little bit better than 11.
Yeah.
You know, I'm on.
You're a beast, though.
hills, you
You're a
know.
beast. One of those Spartan races, you're crushing it.
I was doing okay, and then I think you guys got tired of hanging with me. You're like, all right, man, we're going to go out.
We'll just work on the monkey bars before you
and
go.
Ranger JD. We're like, all right, man. I think it was what, 4 miles, and then
Yeah, something like that. 4 or 5.
4 miles, and then finally it's like one of the obstacles got me, and you're like, all right, dude.
You're good.
Yeah, dude, I gotta.
We got some awesome T-shirts out of the deal, though.
We did. They were awesome. No, it was a good time. It was a good time. You know, and Spartan Race will definitely show you where your training deficiencies lie, you know, clearly. But no, man. So in terms of philosophy, geez, it's that bandwidth, you know, fitness is such, I'll say, an absolutely critical piece of, I'll say, the Warriors Ascent program, you know, as you know, we instruct, you know, and it's everything from the energy piece. You know, if you're just like, God, I'm so unmotivated, I've got no energy, that's a horrible place to be. But then even hormonally, you know, studies have shown, you know, endorphins and this and that. There's so much to the mental health aspects of a good exercise regimen beyond just, I'll say, the performance parameters that you've laid out for us, you know, in terms of the, you know, Ranger Indoctrination Program or RASP or whatever they're calling it. So clearly, I mean, we can harken back to the days of like, man, I used to be able to run it. But now, I'll be honest with you, now it's just like, there's some of that, like, I don't want to be a fat tub of goo. Yeah. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, I want to just feel better. I want to be able to focus. I want a little bit more energy. And now I've just become attuned more to, I'll say, mental acuity, mood. I come off a good run and I feel really good, you know, or any sort of workout thing. So, you know, I would say to the audience, you know, aside from resiliency, you know, as we laid out with some of the first responder stuff, you know, being able to adapt to a particular situation and having gas in the tank and the bandwidth. I mean, certainly, absolutely, you want that mental and psychological edge. But that's, you know, even all of this, all the stuff that you bring, don't discount the you know, the mental and the emotional aspects of it. I'm sure we can have multiple conversations. You miss, you know, a workout or two. Yeah. How do you feel? Yeah. Like crap.
Exactly. Yep.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's like, you got to get started first off. Like, you don't have to go out and crush yourself day one, week one, and put yourself in the hole to where you're like, oh, now I'm so sore I can't, sit on the couch without, or get up off of the couch without hurting, and just completely, beat yourself into the ground. Now you don't want to do anything for 2 or 3 days.
Right.
So it's like, hey, getting on a legitimate program that does it the right way, and yeah, you're going to have some soreness, and it's understandable, right? There's, it's part of how, you get hypertrophic results, like hypertrophic muscle growth and damaging muscle tissue and regeneration. But, there's a thing called, I used to give this Run 101 slide deck and presentation to the Army. And it was one of the things I would always bring back up is on rest days versus recovery days. And a recovery day is more of like, hey, we're going to do a shakeout run. We're going to get up, move, ride a bike, go swim, do something, go for a walk, because there's revascularization, which is basically reintroducing blood flow into the muscle, the damaged muscle tissue. So we see this a lot with people who have actually had like musculoskeletal injuries. So one of the first signs, and this was coming from a study, I have the PMID number for it on the slide deck, but is when we get blood flow back into the damaged muscle tissue, that is the first thing that we need to see for recovery, right? So if you want to recover, if you're really sore and really tired and you just beat yourself up from day one, week one of your new workout routine or fitness routine, it's get up and move. It's,
so the active recovery.
Do some sort of yoga, get up, walk around, you'll feel better, do some air squats, do some whatever. If it's your lower extremities, maybe just move, just getting blood flow and getting active after a hard regimen, and you'll start to feel better. And it's, hey, just try and stick, like talk about consistency and sticking to your routine. And It's just so massively important. And then you build up, and then guess what? After you build up after so long, it just becomes a lifestyle. And then it's just part of it's part of your routine. And then if you miss a day, you feel like crap. You're like, oh, I just can't miss anymore. And then it just kind of snowballs. And then you start to see those results. It eventually will take place. You cannot do hard work like that, or, a fitness routine years over years and not see some sort of results at some point in your life. Like,
right. But I think, the periodization back, in the old Soviet era.
Yeah.
Where they're like, what is this? And you could see some, everyone's working hard, especially at the Olympic level. Everybody's working hard.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got some really great athletes. So then what's left, in terms of differentiation, it's the programmatic, right? Yep. Okay, hey, we've got this philosophy or this regimen, and they've got, and to give them credit, they were, I'm sure some of it was like steroids and stuff too.
Yeah.
But, there was something about the recovery aspects and periodization and all of that
matters
to really elicit that training effect,
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much to it.
Yeah. And it does, like, you start to get into that world of like my world and, the strength conditioning world and exercise selection, and then set and rep schemes. And, we're training, whether I'm training for strength, that's a different set and rep scheme than if I'm training for hypertrophy, which is muscle growth and size. Like, and we're just trying to get bigger muscles, right? Which will result in a lot of, other outcomes as well. If you have bigger muscles, force production and so on and so forth. But, or if I'm training strictly for muscular endurance, right? Am I just going to be able to, how long and hard can I go until those muscles begin to fail, muscular fatigue? That's a different set and rep scheme than, speed and power. That's and right. Then, velocity-based training. So there's, it absolutely, especially when you get into the high level stuff and you got like Olympic athletes are training for that. It's what do you, then you come into the periodization to where, and those for the audience that don't know, it's, hey, I'm going to do a block where we're training just specifically on strength to get as strong as possible. Super high weight and intensity is low volume.
That's right.
90% of your 1 rep max, 1 to 3 reps, right? Or so on and so forth. Or in that range versus, just muscle size and growth, 67 to 75% of your 1 rep max for 6 to 12 reps, muscular endurance, like how many push-ups can I do until I fail, right? It's, below 67% of your 1 rep max for over 12 reps. So I digress.
No, you
got me going nerdy now.
I geek out at that stuff too. Yeah. I mean, you know it far better than I do, but it's what,
some knowledge pass on to the audience.
Right? Tutor bumpers, periodization training for sports.
Yep.
Right. It's one of the Bibles, that I
Absolutely.
read way back in the day that speak anatomical adaptation, right? All of it.
I love it.
But no, this notion that if you're a great endurance athlete, you're an overall great. No, there's many facets.
Yeah.
So accomplishments before we close out, let's talk about really, we talked about some of the theoretical aspects, right?
Yeah.
But you pointed out that, well, it's also the doing, like when you actually see it, all the theory played out. So let's talk about all the things that you've done, man.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been fortunate enough that I was a contractor for a little while, working with the Army's H2F program. We implemented that for the 101st Airborne Division.
Roxxons.
Roxxons, 3rd
I was
Brigade.
3187 myself. I was an Iron Rock.
Iron Rock.
Roxxon.
Yeah. And thankfully, it was such a dynamic installation into the 3rd Brigade that, I got to do some training sessions with 1187. I got to do, with my guys at 2506 and 3187, like they would come in at different times. So our team of strength coaches that I was working with, and, I had my lead strength coach, team lead, he was awesome. And then our program director. And one of the biggest things that we did down there was the H2F program had never sent contractors overseas to train our guys when they were deployed. So 3rd Brigade deployed out to Eastern Europe, and they, from the 3-star general down, made an amendment to our contract, and we're like, all right, we'll send strength coaches over there see if this as a test pilot, deal. And myself, I was the first coach to go with one other strength coach, and then our program director and a couple captains who are nutritionists, cognitive performance guy. And we went from the United States over to Estonia, where 1187 was there. And that's all public knowledge or whatever. And we were training those guys in Estonia for a week. That strength coach that was assigned to that battalion turned around and came home. I flew from Estonia to Germany and then went up to Grafenwehr in Germany and trained my guys for a week at 2506. We basically kind of put on like a facilitator's course, a train the trainers program. Took about 30 guys from each battalion, just said, hey, we're going to teach you everything, try and make you a mini day one strength coach, from different areas of the battalion.
It's kind of almost like master fitness training.
Exactly.
Way back in the day.
No, exactly. Yeah, and they're actually changing master fitness trainers still in existence, and they're pushing that over to, they will now be, I can't remember exactly what they're calling them. It's going to be H2F implementations course or something like that. So they're going to it'll be the same thing, but they'll change it a little bit. But yeah, it's still in existence. So yeah, just teach them about exercise science, program design, hinging, a lot of movement pattern stuff, how to hinge properly, how to become a coach, how to examine somebody doing a squat and say like, hey, where are you wrong? Where are the deficiencies? That way, when they're out in the field, when they see their buddies picking up jerry cans or ammo cans and they're all messed up, they can go correct them.
And not throw their back out.
And not throw their back out. And then when they're starting to implement PT sessions over there, they can actually implement legitimate resistance training sessions instead of, hey, well, we're just going to do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and ruck. And and we're going to ruck 3 times a week at 12 miles a piece and break each other off or whatever, right? Like there's a lot of that program design that they learned.
Yeah, there's a lot of that to overcome. It's kind of the old school, we're just going to run people into the ground. And that's where, having a program that is actually designed to elicit, a training effect is important versus just smoke dudes. Yeah. It's like, well, you can do that and then you're going to break them.
And the biggest, sorry, go ahead.
No. So tell us, so you trained the colonels and then.
Yeah. So,
the commanding general, 18th Airborne Corps. Tell us about that.
So, yeah.
We got a couple minutes left.
Yep. Real quick. So we, our colonel from 3rd Brigade was really big in the H2F. He was a massive proponent, pushing it out to all the battalions. He was an awesome guy. And he would come into our facility like 3 times a week and train with us. And he would go like, hey, we're training 1187 today. They'd come in 3187, 2506, so on and so forth. So he was constantly in and out of our facility doing PT sessions with different battalions and different segments from each battalion. So big proponent of it. And then we got a visit from Lieutenant General Donahue, who's the 3rd-star general. He's the commanding general of the 18th Airborne Corps. So he came down. And we did a big training session for him called the Dragon Mile. So we had him carry a bunch of implementations, a full mile, and then come back. And then they came into the facility. And there was probably 100 people in that room and divvied up like, all right, well, we took all the list of attendants, the officers, and some of the higher enlisted gentlemen that were going to be in there for that speech and working out with the general. And we created 9 different teams for that training session. And they chose me to be on Lieutenant General Donahue's team. So I got to work out with him for that entire training session and kind of oversee and give insights as we were working. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. Got some, FaceTime with him during that whole time. And yeah, it was funny because he walked up real fast. He walked up and he's like, "I'm your strength conditioning coach for this one." He's like, "So that means you're on our team. So that means you're doing it with us." I was like, "Absolutely, sir. Let's go." So got to do the whole workout with him. And
the general.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, Asset Performance Institute, beanasset.com for those that want more of Dave, if they want to seek him out. I mean, geez, hey, if he's good enough for commander of the 18th Airborne Corps, I think he's good enough for you all. So, no, I appreciate you, brother. This has been great.
Thank you.
No,
It's
awesome.
been an honor.
I appreciate you. Awesome. Stay fit, be an asset, not a liability. All right.
That's
we'll see
right.
you guys next time.
Hi, Matt Hastings here, sending a thank you for watching this episode of the Warriors Ascent podcast. We strive to build a community of warriors made up of our nation's veterans and first responders. And to reach as many of those in need as possible, we need your help. Please just smash that like button and comment or share our content. Warriors Ascent is a Kansas City-based nonprofit that aids veterans and first responders with PTS. I went through this effective program and want those that are struggling to find what I found. Check us out on our website at warriorsascent.org.